The first day I walk into the office, I'm like, I've got this. I am going to kill this. Like, this is it. And she goes, okay, here's 100 leads. Pick up the phone and call them. And I'm like, I pick up the phone. I look at her, I said, Brianne, this is way harder than I thought it would be. It's a lot different. You know, even with growing up with the family and hearing about it, there's nothing that can quite show you what it is until you do it. And when you do it, you realize it's not exactly the beast you initially thought you were going into.
Welcome to episode 5 of Mic Drop. Today we are with Brett Watson. Brett, how are you?
Wonderful, Mike. How are you?
Good. So tell us, Brett, where do you currently live, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. So I am a third generation real estate agent here in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
Been actively selling here in this market for right around 6 years.
Okay.
Got into the real estate business straight out of high school, you know, between my grandfather, my dad, watching my sister. I knew at a pretty young age what direction I was going to head, and here we are.
So did you feel forced into real estate, or was just a natural progression because of your family?
You know, I'd say it's just a natural progression because of my family. You know, as a little kid, I said forever I wanted to be a firefighter. And then I realized that was probably not my direction. So probably in 7th grade, I had the switch of, nope, I'm not going to college. I'm going straight to real estate. I'm going to kill this thing.
What was like growing up? I mean, obviously your dad was one of the top real estate agents in the country. He obviously is a trainer now that trains real estate agents throughout the country. What was that like growing up with that? And then obviously having a sister that follows suit.
You know, it's interesting. You know, I love to tell people all the time, there's not a lot of stuff in life I know, but I do know real estate. You know, it's really interesting when you grow up with a dad that was the kind of coach and mentor he was to so many, and then also doing the volume of real estate he did as well. Our dinner time family conversations, I mean, evolved around real estate. I mean, our livelihood, every part of it was all real estate. And so, you know, as a little kid, you can't help but just take it in. You don't know any different. It's just the conversation. It's the environment you're in. And so it was, I got exposed to a lot at a much younger age than most. So it's kind of
So at what point did you realize that you were going to follow suit?
You know, probably when I was in about 7th grade,
Okay.
I really realized that, you know, so my middle name is Charles. And my grandfather, who started the company, his name was Charles. And so he passed away when I was about 8 years old. And so I took it very much to my heart that I wanted to step into the business and carry out that legacy. And here we are.
So what did you think about real estate going into it? Did you understand the activities that you actually were going to have to do to be successful? Or did you find it different being in the business versus kind of looking at the business? Because so many real estate agents think they know what real estate agents do until they actually get in there and realize this isn't what I signed up for.
You know, it's funny you say that. My sister, Brianne, the first day I walk into the office, I'm like, I've got this. I am going to kill this. Like, this is it. And she goes, okay, here's 100 leads. Pick up the phone and call them. And I'm like, okay. I pick up the phone. I look at her, I said, Brianne, this is way harder than I thought it would be. And she's like, see what I'm saying? And so at any rate, to answer your question, it's a lot different. You know, even with growing up with the family and hearing about it, there's nothing that can quite show you what it is until you do it. And when you do it, you realize it's not exactly the beast you initially thought you were going into.
So what was your first year of real estate like in terms of transactions, learning? I mean, what was that first year like for you? Because so many people are getting into the business or are struggling. What was it like for you? And again, you had a father who was one of the top agents in the country. You had a sister that followed. So what was your first year like?
You know, my first year was really interesting because my first year was my dad's last year of full production. And then, of course, my sister Brianne was still in full production. So between the two of them, I mean, they would go out and list 15 to 25 houses in a given month.
Right.
So the pool of buyers that they would pull in with that was a ton. And so, you know, as they were starting to build this team concept, it was a perfect opportunity. I stepped in and was able to work a lot of these buyers and obviously was successful in converting it. I want to say my first year in real estate, I did something around 30 to 35 transactions.
Wow, that's amazing. Now I'm curious, what would you tell someone that was deciding about whether or not they should do real estate on a team versus try to go out and do it yourself? Since obviously you were brought up in a team environment from the beginning, a lot of people don't understand the benefits of actually being around a group of people that are on the same path. And then obviously having someone like your father that obviously can train them to do all the amazing things that real estate agents need to do.
Well, what I would tell you is when you get into real estate, what your perspective of it is going in versus once you get in is completely different.
Mhm.
And honestly, I think the number one thing that is the biggest dream killer for real estate agents across the country is lack of accountability.
100%.
So if you go out and do it by yourself, can it be done? Yes, but it is so much harder because one, you don't really know what you're doing.
Mhm.
Two, most people don't initially have the discipline to follow the kind of schedule you need to exceed in this business. And then thirdly, what I would say is just the support of those around you. If you go do this by yourself, you lock yourself in an office and you don't have a support team on your hard days, it is that much harder to get through when you don't have the right kind of people pushing you along in the business and helping you see what that growth and success is. Because honestly, when you first get in, it requires so much blind faith. You hear these people telling you different things and what to do. And honestly, it's kind of challenging to decipher what's right versus what's wrong. So my advice to people is when you start, find a team, get that support system. It's okay to pay your dues, especially if you're getting the kind of training that will allow you to be the kind of person you want to be long term.
So what is it like being on a real estate team where your father is the owner of the company?
It's interesting. it's interesting. No, I mean, for the most part, it's been a blessing. Being able to walk alongside my father, and I've been fortunate and blessed because of the experience he has with coaching people and bringing people up in the industry. So being able to tap into that on the everyday, no doubt, has made my path to success maybe not exactly easier, but it definitely helped me get there a lot faster.
So tell me something. I mean, how important is it for Brett Watson to make a name for himself outside of just being the son of Gordon or the brother of Brienne?
So important. It's honestly the number one thing that keeps driving me every single day because, one of the things that's interesting with me getting into real estate is whenever I started real estate and my dad and sister worked together versus whenever they split off and were both their own separate thing, my dad pulled me over with him. And so it very much changed the dynamics of what I had to learn to do in terms of my business. I had to up my prospecting and change a bunch of things to allow myself to succeed. And when I realized it wasn't just going to be freely given to me, I'm like, if it's not going to be free, I better create a name for myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things I appreciate most about your dad, and that he just didn't give it to you. He's made you earn it. And I think one of the things that I respect most about you is that you've always wanted to create a name for yourself. I think a lot of people would look on the outside and say Brett has it made, when the truth is that Brett is making it made by himself by doing the things every single day that he has to do. So what do you do on a consistent basis now to keep your mindset? Because obviously, as you're increasing your production over the years, how have you been able to try to keep your mindset right?
For a lot of my career, it was hands down the hardest part. Honestly, my mindset has cost me more money than probably any other aspect of the business.
Why do
And
you say
so,
that?
because whenever your mindset isn't right, it's really hard to go in with the mind and the mentality of what you need to do every single day to win at the highest level in this business. Honestly,
Mhm.
if you can't do it, I don't believe you can really ever experience a true success that you may want.
Right.
But, as I evolved and I realized my mindset not being what it should be and how much money it was costing me, I realized that having those bad days and letting my thinking go in the toilet, it was no longer worth it. And so one of the things, you go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I think, in real estate, there's three parts. The first one is where you start to actually believe that it's possible. The second one is you actually believe that you can do it. And then the third one, which is the hardest, is you actually believe you're worth it. So, I mean, at what stage do you think you are now? Do you think you've gotten past where you know it's possible and now you're starting to get into that second phase where you actually are starting to believe that it's not only possible, but that Brett Watson can do it at the highest level?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly where I would say I am. And honestly, for the viewers out there, I mean, I didn't start believing that until probably the last 6 to 8 months.
It
And,
shows.
and it's crazy what a difference it has made, in my ability of providing customer service and my ability to, turn more deals, and also have a happy, fulfilling life in the business. Because if you're not careful, the business will eat you alive, and so being able to control that and learn that you can be that kind of person that can constantly produce, it changes everything.
So if someone was out there, they're in a bad place emotionally, they're not really sure, what would be two or three pieces of advice that you could give them that you've done in the last 6 to 8 months to transform? Because I mean, it's probably been one of the number one things that I personally have noticed about you is that there's just a confidence, there's a belief, there's a swagger in how you go about and handle things. You know, you understand that every day isn't going to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be perfect because we're not looking for perfection, we're looking for progress. And I think over the last 6 to 8 months, that's probably one of the biggest things that I've seen in you. So, what would you tell someone that was in the same place you were 6 months or even a year ago?
The two biggest things I would say is number one, you have to get in touch with your goals and the life you want to create. It's
Mm-hmm.
essential. It's not an option. You have to get in touch with that and you have to remind yourself of it daily. Honestly, in the beginning, I would say do it 3, 4 times a day to keep it on the forefront of your mind, to remind yourself what you really want, because you are where you are in life because you chose to be there. Whether
Absolutely.
you did it intentionally or not intentionally, your life is a result of your choices. And every one of us has to take personal responsibility for our choices and why we are where we are. So,
Right.
the first I would say is getting in touch with what you really want. And the next thing I would say is reach out to people who can make your life better and help you through it. If
Mm-hmm.
you try to do things alone in your life, I would almost guarantee you will never experience the kind of success and fulfillment in your life that you really want to. I love to say, I mean, if you look at top celebrities, top athletes, top real estate agents, just top professionals, almost every single one of them has one, if not multiple, different coaches in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So if the top people have them, why wouldn't you when you're not there?
Yeah.
There must obviously be something to it.
I think a lot of people think they can go far by themselves, and they can, but they can go much farther having people along the way that push them and force them to be the best versions of themselves. Like I always say, if I told you to run for 50 yards and then I promise you you could do it faster and you did it, but this time I let a pit bull behind you and it started chasing you, you would probably run faster. Most people don't have a reason to actually do something. And I think that's one of the things that hurts them. So, what would you tell yourself on day one? If you could go back in time and tell Brett Watson day one, what are two or three things of advice that you would give any new agent or Brett Watson day one?
I'd say the three things are number one, learn to master your schedule. Discipline, hands down, equals freedom. And without that discipline, you will work 10 times harder than you should have to get the same results.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing I would say is controlling your mind. Your mind is the engine that is going to take you anywhere in life you believe it will let you. If you don't know how to control that and, control your state of emotion, how easy it is to get distracted and pulled off the task you should be doing that day is far too easy. So you have to control your mindset. And the last thing I would say is just as a whole, your ability to have just self-discipline. Motivation comes and goes. There are so many days in this job you don't want to do it. I don't want to. But the problem is if you let yourself down too many times in this business, that becomes a habit. And that habit is like cancer. Honestly, it will destroy you. So having that self-discipline every day to be true to your schedule, to be true to keeping your mindset strong, I would say are two or three of the most important components of succeeding in this business.
So, what do you do when you wake up and you say, you know what, I don't feel like doing it today, which most people feel most days?
Those days are a challenge. But the benefit of those days are when you can wake up and find a way to find gratitude in what you have for that day. And sometimes it's just a matter of having gratitude for waking up, but if you can find that sense of peace in that and get yourself to do something you don't want to do on the hardest days, it's amazing how your harder days start diminishing and the good days start becoming easier.
Yeah, well, it's funny if you can push through on the hard days, you can really appreciate the good days. So, what does a typical day look like for Brent Watson?
On a typical day right now, I'll get up about 6:15, get up, I'll do some priming, get showered, get cleaned up. I will, my parents' house is actually on the way into the office. So I always stop by their house, grab a cup of coffee, say hi to my mom, say hi to my grandma. If any of my siblings are still at the house, I'll say hi to them. And then I'll get up to the office. We've been at our office, been trained to do a 4-step morning checklist. And in a nutshell, that's just going through your active listings, your hot buyers, any pending deals, and then just anything that needs attention. But in that morning, it's a checklist you're making not to do right now, but that way you can kind of empty your mind to start each day at zero. So it gives you that time to calm yourself down and realize what task you need to have that day. And then by 8 o'clock, we're dialing. So for me, from 8 to about 10:30 every single day, I want to be calling. That 2.5 hours is designated to that. From about 10:30 to 11, I'll spend some time doing a little bit of back-end admin side, while prospecting. If I need to set up any searches or anything like that, I'll take that time. And then every day from 11 to 12, my dad does a team meeting. So I'll go in there for that. Usually from 12 to 1, I'll go have lunch. Either I'll use my air fryer at the office and cook it up real quick, or we'll go up the street real quick and grab a quick bite to eat. And then from 1 to 5, I'm either doing one of two things. I'm either out on listing appointments or buyer appointments, or I'm prospecting.
Wow.
And honestly, that was one of the best shifts I ever made in my business, was taking that time in the afternoons when I wasn't on appointments and flipping it to a productive activity. And once I did that, it's crazy what happens.
Yeah, I think most real estate agents, they get the morning schedule right, but they forget that there's an afternoon schedule. And I think the afternoon schedule is what really dictates if you're going to be an average agent or an extraordinary agent. Because in a typical day, you can almost get 2 days worth of work in for most agents one day. And if you do that consistently, there's not many agents that can beat you. So how hard is it to keep that kind of schedule?
It's very hard, especially in the beginning. I mean, what a lot of people underappreciate is how hard it is to have the level of mental focus and intensity you need of being on the phone for 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7 hours in one day. But the agents that can learn to maximize their time like that, it is unbelievable what a change in your results are and how much more productive you are with your time. And honestly, that alone, I think, sets you ahead of most of your competition, because most people are not willing to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think repetitious boredom is probably the number one hardest thing for most real estate agents at the highest level, because you're making the same calls, talking to the same people, saying the same thing. So, what are you telling yourself as you're going through hours and hours and hours of calls?
For me, when it gets really hard, I start reminding myself of my wants. What do I really want? Is the pain of not having that worse? Or is the pain of, taking time off from prospecting worse? Which is worse, not having what I want or not doing the work I need to do? And then whenever you get punished enough times in the business, because it will happen, you learn that the pain of prospecting is so much easier than the pain of not being able to have what you really want out of the life.
Yeah, I think so many people look at real estate as this thing that goes up and up and up and up and up, and it's this beautiful, smooth motion. How have you dealt with your breakdowns? Because, every real estate person, as they go through a successful career, is going to go through a series of breakdowns, which is normal. I think people don't realize the only way you ever have breakthroughs is you have to have breakdowns, because breakdowns let you and force you to have to become more, which means you can give more, which means you do more, and ultimately you serve and make more. So how have you personally dealt with the many breakdowns that you've had in your own career? Because I think so many people break down, but they don't break through.
You know, that I think comes back to being in touch with your actual goals and your why in life. It's so easy in real estate when you get in some stinking thinking, it can be really, really hard to break through that. But I love to say, when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired,
Mhm.
you'll either do one of two things. You'll either quit and you're done, or two, you're going to see what kind of dog is in you and you are going to fight. And it doesn't matter what it costs you, you're going to go get it. And to be honest with you, I mean, for me personally, it was no more than 6 months ago. I was sitting in my dad's office and I lost my cool. I'm like, things don't change. I'm just gonna pull my hair out. I'm done. I can't stand it. But to be honest with you, it was so crazy because that breakdown hands down led to my biggest breakthrough I've ever had in the business.
Of
You
course.
know, and when you break down like that, it really shows you who you are.
Mhm.
Are you a person that is willing to face adversity and push forward, or are you going to take the adversity and take your foot off the gas and sit back and do nothing? But the thing I know for a fact are the people that push forward through the pain ultimately will get to live the lives they really want, while most people don't.
Absolutely. I mean, that is probably the number one thing that most real estate agents never get to is they don't know how to push through the adversity. They don't know how to push past the uncertainty. They don't have people in their life that force them to become the best versions of themselves. And when you're alone in real estate, there's obviously challenges if you don't have a good support group. I certainly wouldn't be where I'm at today without all the great support people that have helped me along the way. So, I mean, when Brett Watson looks at his business, where does Brett Watson envision his business going over the next 3 to 5 years?
I can definitely see myself getting agents under myself.
Mhm.
Uh, Honestly, over the next 3 to 5 years, I would tend to think I'll be doing somewhere between 120 to 150 transactions per year.
Mhm.
Now, I don't know if all that will just be me or the people I also have under me.
Sure.
Um, and then it's hard to say. I eventually want to get my broker's license, and I don't know if that'll take me the direction of I eventually open my own brokerage and kind of do my thing. If my dad steps out of his role a little bit and I have the opportunity to step more in that. So not sure exactly what that will look like, but definitely see myself doing at least 120 deals a year and scaling it.
So, what motivates you at this point? Obviously, you're a successful agent. You obviously have a successful family that's in it. I mean, outside of just creating a name for yourself, what motivates you every single day to not only get out of bed to go out and dream bigger over the next 3 to 5 years?
Probably the number one thing that motivates me is my passion to give back to people.
Mhm.
You know, in my generation, I see so many people that quit so fast and far too early and never were given a chance in life. And I'm like, if I can push through that and get as much knowledge as I possibly can, I will be able to give back to people at the highest level and allow people to experience life in a way they never thought was possible. And, with the exposure I have gotten at such a young age, I've got knowledge that there's a lot of people that are 50 and 60 years old that I've never heard. And so it really motivates me to know that the better I can make myself, the more I can give back to the world, in turn, hopefully make this a better place for everyone.
Got you. So, how are you right now in terms of your database? Because I feel like the database for a lot of real estate agents is one of the weakest parts of their business.
I would say, from a scale from 1 to 10, I would say I'm an 8 out of 10 now.
Okay. So,
Six months ago,
tell me a little bit about what you do.
so the biggest thing I did, so I started using Mojo. I started using that as my main dialer. And the biggest thing I started doing was putting task and follow up dates on all of my people.
Mhm.
I did not realize how detrimental it is to not put follow ups on your people and knowing when to call them back. Honestly, perfect follow up, is calling somebody at the exact right moment they're ready to make a decision.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to do if you're organized and structured the right way. But if you just have random things here and there, it it's like chaos. And honestly, it's crazy how much business it will cost you.
Yeah. I mean, in coaching people, that's probably the number one thing that I never would have thought is how bad people's lead follow up is. I mean, most people that I work with at the beginning, they have zero follow-up tasks. They don't keep good notes with the people they talk to. It's just they put someone down and then they put them in a folder. And then when they realize them in a couple months, they call back, and you can't get productive work done with clients doing that. So how has that changed your business, just being a lot more organized?
It's funny you asked that. Well, first off, it's made the business way more fun.
Yeah.
I go into the office and I'm like, all right, I've got this group of people. I've already had these conversations. I know where they stand. So for starters, you walk in the office and then you're getting to have pleasant conversations with people that look forward to working with you as I do them. And the other thing is it simplified the business.
Mm-hmm.
And the more simple, I truly believe this, the more simple a real estate agent can make the business, the amount of productivity and production they can do is significantly higher than the people that make it complicated.
100%. I mean, Tony Robbins always said that, complexity is the enemy of execution. One of the things that I try to teach everyone that I work with is just how to simplify the process. The less steps that you have and the more simple you make it, the easier it is to follow up, not just with your past clients, but with all of your leads. Because at the end of the day, it's like, as real estate people, we should be talking to people more that we know than people we don't know. I always thought it was insanity to call a bunch of people that you don't know at the expense of not ever contacting all the people that you do know. So how hard was it for you to go back and have conversations with people that you didn't talk to in maybe a year or two?
Hard. Really hard. It's, whenever you tell people you're going to do something and then you don't do what you promised, recovering that relationship is very challenging. But the one thing I know for a fact is the more you can get your ego out of it and do the right thing, it may be painful, but the beauty on the other side of that pain is well worth going to the pain to get to the other side.
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, even my own journey with my past clients, and I get more referrals now in a month than I do in probably the last year or two. Because, 18 months ago, I actually started doing all the things that I teach a lot of my coaching students in terms of just how to follow back up. Because, I grew up just being a hunter, just going out and finding 150 deals cold every single year without calling your database, never realizing how much business and just how much harder I was making the business. When you call your past clients and you create follow-up plans, it just makes the business a lot funner.
Wait, absolutely. And think about it. People that know you are so much more quick to answer the phone, engage with you. People love working with people they know. Honestly, I think it's the biggest mistake real estate agents make across the board, hands down, is like you said, they go talk to people that don't know them versus spending more time on people that already do know them. And like you've told me before, you spend more time talking to people that know you versus who don't know you. Watch the amount of time shrink significantly of how much time you have to prospect. Because honestly, I don't know anybody that would say prospecting is a blast. If you do, congratulations. I'm glad you have that because I haven't found it yet. But when you call the right kind of people, boy, does it make it a heck of a lot more fun.
Well, I think a lot of people forget, if it takes you 15 or 20 hours to set a listing appointment and get one, and you get a referral that equals a listing appointment, one referral equals 15 to 20 hours of prospecting. And I think that's where a lot of people forget, is that referrals basically allow you to buy your time back, so that instead of you having to go out 15 to 20 hours, you can either double your business or you can actually just work more effectively. So what are probably 2 or 3 things between now and the end of the year that you really want to work on?
I really want to continue getting better with my scripting and dialogue, and really working on, when I'm giving a delivery, working my pauses in there and really becoming a higher level communicator. The other thing I really want to do is keep expanding my COI and past client book. Mm-hmm. I've really grown to understand here lately the value in doing so. And so really making a push on that and growing that to the next level. And then honestly, the last thing I would say is just continuing to improve my mindset every day, because I truly believe if you say you can, you're right. And if you say you can't, you're right. It's all about how you look at it. And so really continuing to build that mindset and that belief in myself is really what I would say my biggest 3 are.
Yeah, I mean, I think your scripts and dialogues over the last 6 months, I mean, I've literally watched you transform. What are some of the things that you've done to really work and refine the way you're talking to people? Because now there's probably not many objections you would get that you wouldn't be able to come back and give a good response.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the biggest thing is just practicing. Look at Tiger Woods or Olympic gold medalist Simone Biles, or you go look at all these different people in all these different crafts and fields. Every one of them practices. They're watching tape, they're rehearsing what they're going to do. And honestly, so many real estate agents don't practice it. It's
Why do you
like,
think that is? Why do you think most real estate agents just show up at work and never practice the very thing that they're going to go out and do every day?
because they don't understand the value in it.
Mhm.
I would say it's hands down is they have not sold themselves yet on the value in it. But I mean, think about it. In anything you're doing, if you know exactly where you're trying to go, I like to say starting with the end in mind, if you know how to conversate with people that will allow them to go down a communication line that gets you to your end desired result, think how much easier your job is. I mean, you cut your time in half for double or triple the same results.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've noticed in you the last 6 months is that, I mean, you've gone from reading scripts to actually becoming a script, and that you've learned how to actually talk to people. Tell me a little bit about what that transition is like now, talking to people where you're not having to just read off a script. You actually have studied your dialogue. So you're actually being able to not just sell people, you can really learn to influence and persuade people, which is the next level for people that are in sales.
Well, I think when you're doing sales at the highest level, the greatest salespeople know how to listen very intentionally.
Mhm.
And if you're sitting here trying to read a script, your focus is now on a piece of paper and not actually listening to your client. And when
Mhm.
you can actually listen to understand and not listen to give a quick response, it's amazing how much better you can communicate at such a higher level and actually letting your client hear what they need to hear instead of you saying what a piece of paper is telling you to say.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really where the power is, when you can start to say things to your client that they need to hear, not just what your piece of paper is telling you to say.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you so much for coming out. Hopefully, we can have you back on a future episode. If anybody wanted to contact Brett Watson and get a hold of him, could you tell everybody out there what company you're with and obviously how they can get in contact with you?
Again, my name's Brett Watson. I work here with 𝐊𝐞𝐲 Realty here in Oklahoma City. You can find me on Instagram, bwatts_23, or feel free to call or text me anytime, 405-996-0957.
Well, thank you so much, Brett. It was nice having you, and look forward to having you back on future episodes.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.